Welcome back to the podcast. This is Layla Rose, and today we have a fun special episode. We're going to be discussing how to fund your lifestyle and businesses with providers and sugar daddies. All right. So I made a post actually earlier this week on Instagram, and I was just very honest about what's been happening in the behind the scene of the Hathor Mystery School and the process that's been happening, especially when it comes to funding. So when it comes to how I built the Hathor Mystery School, so I had my spiritual awakening in 2020, and then, long story short, I was having those dreams and visions about, creating that school and creating those containers and courses that would, help people, step into their power, but fully understand, who they are and what they can do. And unfortunately, this is not something that, education in schools, for example, with the traditional system is providing to people. All right. So it's actually the opposite. I'm offering the opposite. I'm helping people, being sovereign and powerful and liberated and, create whatever life, heaven on earth they want to create. So fast forward to a couple years, obviously I started small. And so what happened is that I went the traditional route when it comes to funding because, of my own programming, I was actually going through the process as well of understanding my psychic gifts and how I can attract, resources. So at first, I thought, I have to go, the traditional way. I have to find investors. I have to go to banks. And so that was I would say I was humiliated at the time. I don't feel humiliated anymore, but it was at the time because I was like, people were so confused. Like, can you imagine those executives, like men with suits being like, a school of what? A divine feminine school? Like, what do you mean? And I would be like, yeah, like the temples, like the schools that we used to have, like in ancient Egypt, like the temples that we have right now, like this is not. And they were like, oh, this is new age. And I was like, this is not new, this is ancient. Like, I'm bringing back ancient knowledge, ancient practices that are aligned with Mother Nature. And people were like, what are you talking about? And obviously investors were like, there's no way, which is amazing now that I think about it, because can you imagine if I would have had to share the profits with those people? Like, no. Especially now with the new paradigm, it's all about, the divine feminine coming into power and fully claiming her throne. And there are so many ways that men have been exploiting, earth and the feminine energy. And it's almost like those new projects and ventures and businesses that we're creating cannot be contaminated with this type of masculine, wounded masculine energy. All right. So hopefully that resonates with my audience right now, because I mean, if you clicked on that video, first of all, you probably have the same type of, values and mindset as I have. So anyway, I went the traditional route. It didn't work. And then I was like, then how am I going to be able to, sustain my physical needs when I'm creating that, because obviously, when you build a business, it's not overnight, it's a process. Even with social media, I have a background in marketing, and so obviously, in social media marketing specifically, so obviously that helps a lot to speed up the process. But still, a business needs momentum. People need to get to know you and get to know your products, and you know what I'm saying? It's not overnight. So then I was like, I cannot get a job because that job is just going to be draining the life out of me. That's in the past when I used to work 9 to 5, it would just drain me away. Like, especially because, you know, not only do you work 9 to 5, but then you're stuck in traffic morning and night. And then people that are like, well, just start working, you know, at night. It doesn't make sense, right? It really doesn't make sense. And it's part of the toxic hustle culture of like, go, 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 just take some Adderall and like sleep 2 hours. And, you know, and that's fine for some people. That obviously that's how a lot of businesses were built. But it's not aligned with the divine feminine way for sure. So I was like, how am I going to do that? How am I going to do that the divine feminine way? You know, because also that's something that I don't talk about that much because I'm very private about, you know, my life. But, you know, I also have a small child to take care of. And then I was like, I want to be home, you know, I want to take care of my kid. You know, I don't want to leave my kid like 12 hours a day. And I'm not shaming people and women who do that, you know, obviously. But for me, I was like, I'm going to find a way to not, you know, do that because it wouldn't make sense. So what I've been learning is that, you know, when it comes to manifestation, you can see the word man in it, right? So manifestation is actually when we use the masculine energy, so manifestation. So it's bounded by time and space. So that's why a lot of times when people build, you know, businesses, men specifically, like listen to their stories. It takes them like decades and like 20 years to establish themselves. Like it's so long. Like in my mind, I'm like, what do you mean 20 years? I'm not gonna wait 20 years to be well known in my industry. Like, are you kidding? But I know that's how like society has been for a very long time. But obviously with social media, we can speed up the process by like 10. Oh my God. You can go viral overnight. It doesn't mean your business is gonna blow up like necessarily, but sometimes it does. Like it's crazy. Like the possibilities are just endless, right? And also when you work with manifestation, but the divine feminine way, what you do is you work with your subconscious mind and your heart, and so therefore you're not bounded by time and space. You can speed up the process like by 19%. Like it just goes so freaking fast because yeah, you're not bounded by time, period. So you can talk to people all over the world and it's quick, and you talk to a lot of people. Like you can reach out millions of people within a week. Like that was not possible before social media because we had to, you know, take like a plane and like, no, it would take too much time. So the next step was, you know, obviously connecting more with my intuition and psychic gifts. And the downloads that kept on coming to me were that, you know, when I would talk to my spirit guides and I would ask them, you know, some advice, they would tell me that I don't have to work, that basically the resources would come to me, and that a man would just serve me and they would just give me the resources. And again, I was so confused at first because I was like, well, I went a traditional route and people were not very enthusiastic about, you know, that. And they were like, no. They were like, you don't even have to talk about spirituality. In fact, it would be better not to talk about it. And I was so confused at first. But again, I trusted the process, I trusted my intuition, and I was like, you know what, let's go for it, you know? And so what happened is that it was so random, actually. I was at a bar. I never go out like that. It's so funny because like when I go out, and it's super rare, that's when I make some incredible connections and I just meet the most amazing people. It's almost like, yeah, I guess I have to like leave my house a lot more because I would meet a lot more people. But yeah, it's almost like these people were like waiting for me. They were like, where were you? And I think that's what that man at first said to me. He was like, where have you been? Or some, but you know, in a funny way, right? Well, that man, you know, at first I never talked about spirituality with him, never talked about politics, you know. I would just be, I guess, very mysterious, you know, and I would just like answer question. But that's the thing, I would embody my feminine energy, and my feminine energy is all about receiving and enjoying luxury and laughing and being calm, like especially when after you know do the cleansing process of your soul, like you feel very worthy of receiving luxury, right? So that's how it started. Actually, that's how I was able to start this journey of having, you know, providers and sugar daddies, however you want to call them. I prefer providers than sugar daddies. I feel like there's, I don't know, it just sounds a bit condescending. Because then that would make me a sugar baby. But anyway, yeah, so that's how it started. So this man just started spoiling me, like just giving, like he would just give me money for like breathing. And so obviously I used that money to fund obviously my bills, but I would use it for the Hathor Mystery School. And I would never talk about it. And then I realized, I was like, oh my God, what I'm doing with him, I can duplicate it, because that's just how it goes with business, right? You find this system that works and then you just duplicate it. And again, this is not some advice to like find the love of your life. This is advice to have your lifestyle funded and your business funded, all right? So I would say one of my top advice for that, I wouldn't tell the guy that I have a business, because here's the thing. If you start telling a man that, you know, you have those ambitions and you want to create this business and blah, 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 which, you know, you're obviously very passionate about, you know, for a lot of men, they're going to start seeing you subconsciously as a competition. Like they're going to, you know what I'm saying? Especially if you're like, oh my God, I want to do this business and it's going to bring in like thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars and possibly millions, you know, like this is going to make a man feel emasculated. And I know it sucks. Like it's just how it is. That's just, you know, my advice. And I would also keep spirituality also out of the question, because especially when it comes to the wounded masculine energy or the unconscious masculine energy, anything that's feminine or anything that's connected to spirituality is like, especially with their programming, you know, with religion, is considered demonic. So like, you know what and it's so ignorant, obviously, and you don't want to have this like role of like teacher in a man's life, because that's also very emasculating as well. Unless he like specifically asked you like a question, I would just keep it quiet. You know what I'm saying? The less you say, the more you get. That's my motto. And that's just something that I noticed. Yeah, obviously I'm going to do a series because I have a lot more advice to give women about this. But yeah, that would be the first step to fully embody this, you know, feminine energy. You can embody either the light feminine of yourself or the dark feminine. What I notice is that whatever is in your second house or maybe in your eighth house. So personally, in my second house, I have my dark moon Lilith. And what I notice with that, when I embody this dark feminine energy, so like if I do my makeup, you know, darker, and I have my black hair, and I have some, but not like in an exaggerated way, but if I look like a little bit like vampy, a little bit like a vampire, a little bit, you know, like I have some like a red dress or like a black dress, you know, and I'm using this type of Lilith energy, and I'm being very mysterious, because when you think about a vampire, you know, a vampire is not like loud and like yelling and telling all her business to everybody, right? She's sexy, she's sensual, she's very mysterious, you know, she can laugh, but she keeps it to herself, right? It's that type of energy. And so when I fully embody that, and that's actually the energy that I was in when I met that first man that I was talking about, that's how I'm able to attract a lot of wealth, you know, without working. So that would be another advice as well. Again, if you have your Venus, for example, in your second house, then I would, you know, suggest doing the opposite. So for example, wearing a lot of pinks and, you know, having more this type of girly pink vibe, or maybe white or like a light pink, you know, to just embody your Venusian energy in that way. So yeah, so this is how you start this process of, you know, having your lifestyle funded. Obviously, you want to make sure that you don't give your sexual energy away. And I feel like that's where there's a lot of misconception. You know, a lot of people think that when you have a sugar daddy, you're being all sexual and you're having sex with him like right away. First of all, you're never forced to do anything in your life. Like if you don't want to have sex with someone, no one should force you to. I would just say, you know, hey, I'm not comfortable yet. You know, I want to get to know you first. Whatever excuse you want to create. And yeah, because especially like if you have sex right away and you think, oh, he's gonna give me money like later on, like you just miss the opportunity. Like he's just gonna move on to that next woman. But if you control and master your emotions and your sexuality, and you make him earn it, you make him pay, like he has to like invest a lot of money to have access to your sexuality if you feel like it. Again, you know, I'm not saying, oh, because he spent, you know, that amount of money, he gets to access you. Like, that's not what I mean. I'm saying, like, if you feel like eventually, you know, being intimate with that man, you want to make sure that he earns it, like that he spends a lot of time, effort, and energy to fully deserve you. So you know what I'm saying? Because if you don't do that, and that's something that, you know, a lot of women do, unfortunately, they just give their body away for like a meal or a drink. And unfortunately, you know, what happens is that they just give their sexual energy away, and it doesn't feel good afterwards because she gave more than what he gave. So the energetic exchange is not fair at all. And obviously that's not the type of conversation you want to have with a man, because they're going to argue with you up until you're blue in the face. Once again, the less you say, the more you get. So you don't want to be talking about energy and crystals and spirituality and politics, you know. If they I mean, it's super rare, that never happened to me, but I guess, you know, if a man want to get like political or they want to ask about like your values, or if you're Christian or whatever, like you can politely put a boundary and say, oh, I'd rather not, you know, talk about this. You know, when I first connect with someone, I want to keep our conversation, you know, fun and lighthearted or whatever, you know, which is a good thing, because you want to be able to set some really small boundaries to see if you're dealing with a psychopath, because a lot of times psychopaths don't like being told no. So you want to tell them no for like small things like that, not like just no and you don't say anything, you know, but you set a boundary, and then you're going to be able to see, you know, the reaction. If they just react in a very mature way, then you know you're dealing with a mature provider. And if they just get like all like agitated, or they're like finding excuses, or they just get like pushy, you know, you just want to, you know, leave that situation. This is not the right target to receive funding. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say today. Obviously, if you have any questions, let me know, suggestions as well. I'm gonna be talking about a lot more about this topic, because I feel like that would help a lot of women that are on a similar path, you know, to have the resources and the funds to not just, you know, build online businesses, but also, you know, to have a life of luxury and to really invest in a smart way, you know, in real estate and trust funds and how it works. And, you know, because I feel like there isn't a lot of women who talk about that. There's still a lot of shame when it comes to embodying divine feminine energy, because of religion, because of the patriarchy. And there's a lot of distortions as well, because a lot of, you know, people think that when you embody your feminine energy and sexuality, you're supposed to have sex with anyone, and it just makes you a free person, which is not the case. once you understand how energy and sexual energy works. So that's it for today's episode, and I'll see you tomorrow for our next podcast. Bye.